NC State family, it's time for an honest look at your sports world. Let's get you hooked up for Pack Therapy, presented by First Horizon Bank. Here are your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Wolfpack football legend Mike Glennon.
Another Wolfpack win, another episode of Pack Therapy. I'm Tim Donnelly alongside NC State legend, longtime NFL quarterback Mike Glennon for another episode. NC State wins over UVA over the weekend in a non-conference game. I feel like it's important to point that out just because it's unusual. 35-31 over UVA. Came down to the wire once again. Wake Forest on Thursday, short week as we're recording this. It's about a day away. Mike, I'm going to give everybody just a little kudos to Mike. And if you listened into my afternoon show, I did after we talked and after we recorded this show last week. I gave a shout out because before our episode last week, Mike said, "I want to talk about Keian Sloan," and he was flying around in week one. And I steered the conversation in a different direction, and we never got to it on Pack Therapy. So actually, like before Game 2 on my afternoon show, I said, I want to shout out Keian Sloan because Mike told me he played lights out in week 1, and we didn't get to it on the pod. So we have receipts. But then he makes the play. He clinches it with the interception, the big man running with the running back. Big fan.
I appreciate you acknowledging that because I was like, last week I was trying to find a way to get his name in there, and it just never came about. And then when he had the game-winning interception, I'm like, I know we're going to talk about him this week, but it's almost too late to be like the guy that was high on Keian Sloan. And the thing about Keian Sloan, it's kind of, as much as I dislike the portal and it's getting to know new players, it's almost like this pleasant surprise. After the first week, I'm like, who is this guy? Like this, he's wearing number 8. Of course, it's my number, so I'm looking to see who's number 8. And I'm like, this guy is all over the place. So then I get up, I'm looking him up, and I'm like, Cian. Like, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I came in last week. I go, how do we pronounce this guy's name? It's Keian Sloan. He's got a high motor, long arms. He just flashed a ton against ECU, and then obviously had another great game last week. So that is kind of one of the cool parts of this transfer portal is you almost don't know what you're getting, and then it catches you by surprise. So he's going to be a big part of this defense, along with another transfer, Sebastian Harsh. Mm-hmm. Two guys that I feel like just play really hard and are constantly showing up on the film in a way, and not making the comparison that they're Peyton Wilson, but the same way you felt kind of Peyton Wilson's presence, like, man, that guy plays hard.
Yeah, I think we should emphasize maybe not quality comparison, but motor comparison. There's some things there. That is, so often it's said about offense, that last play, the interception that sealed it. It's said about offense where like a quarterback makes a bad read and throws it up and the coach goes, no, and then it's caught. Yes, all right, first down, keep it moving. I can't imagine that DJ Elliott was stoked that there was a one-on-one in the end zone and he had Keian Sloan out there running with a pass-catching running back, but turned around, got his head around, saw the ball, made the catch. Like, coach, you need a an emergency corner. Like, I got you. Let me lock somebody up on the outside, the big man.
Yeah, it allows DJ Elliott to call kind of fire zone pressures, mm-hmm. where you're blitzing linebackers and dropping defensive linemen in coverage. And on that play, he kind of had a peel with the back. But, I mean, he really had him gloved. Mm-hmm. It was just a poor decision by the quarterback to make that throw, but a great job by him to get his head around and not make it just an incompletion, but to actually seal the game and catch the ball. So he flashes in more ways than one. But the biggest thing that stands out to me is the motor that he plays with.
So staying on the defense, that play, I mean, obviously in the 2 games that they've won, 2-0, right? Don't give them back. You needed the defense to really bow up one time, the 4th down stop, or the obviously turnover on downs against ECU, and then that one down in the red zone against UVA, which is like an excellent silver lining. But I'd be lying if leading up to those moments there weren't some cautionary signs on the defense, particularly, and we'll get to the secondary. But the run game got going for UVA. Some big plays there after against ECU. Sure, they had their pass success, but the run defense was a bright spot. Now the run defense showing some cracks how concerned are you for the trenches, I guess, on defense?
I am concerned. I think, anytime you're giving up these, it was more the explosive
Mm-hmm.
runs that were the big concern. I mean, the running back had three touchdowns rushing and a couple long ones. I would say I'm more concerned with the secondary, and I think it more has to do with the level of quarterback play that they're going to face in the conference. All these quarterbacks, it's becoming more and more like the NFL in so many ways, but it's becoming everyone needs to have a quarterback, and if you don't have a quarterback, you're definitely behind the eight ball. But for the most part, if you're paying over $1 million, you're probably going to have a good one. And Chandler Morris for Virginia was one of those guys. And you're going to have to find a way to play good coverage, and you're going to have to find a way to get pressure on the quarterback, because otherwise the level of competition that we're going to see, it's going to be tough to stop them. So we can hope that the offense can score 35 points a game, but that's asking a lot. I will say NC State's got themselves a quarterback. We are one of the teams that the other teams are going to be fearing is going to be putting up some big numbers. So the trenches are a concern. I'd say my bigger concern, though, is the secondary.
Talking about what you're going up against, I've referenced this a bunch of times. The ACC wants to be known as the conference of quarterbacks. That's their branding. That's what they call themselves. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. If you just look at 247's transfer portal rankings for this past year, Carson Beck was the second highest ranked. You're looking down the list. Jaren Kiave-Sagapolutele is a very he's a young guy. He enrolled at Oregon and had to transfer to Cal, but he's actually a true freshman. Darian Mensah's in the top 10. There's the Angeli that ended up at Syracuse is in the top 15. There's a lot of guys that hit the transfer portal. Castellanos at Florida State is in the top 20. Ricky Collins, who also ended up at Syracuse, is in the top 25. He's not even playing. Dylan Lonergan from Alabama to Boston College is in the top 25 quarterbacks in the portal. Chandler Morris, who you faced at UVA, number 27 in the transfer portal amongst quarterbacks, according to 247 Sports. Gio Lopez in the top 31. There's a lot of transfers coming into the ACC. So your secondary, if it's not ready now, it better be ready once ACC play starts. And for State, that's Thursday, tomorrow, against Wake Forest. You brought up CJ Bailey. I've got some CJ Bailey questions. I've got some offense questions. We're going to take a break, but when we come right back, we dive into offense and quarterback play with one of the best to do it at NC State. Back here on Pack Therapy, we promised offense conversation, and let's jump right into it. CJ Bailey, what was the difference? I think he played very good week 1 against ECU. I think he played significantly better week 2 against UVA. What was the difference for the young guy going from week 1 to week 2?
The difference was there was no bad decisions. He had a couple of the, plays against ECU. Against UVA, he was super efficient. I mean, we're talking a guy completing 70% of his balls through 2 weeks. He's running the ball really well. He just looks like a guy. Like, you see him out there, he looks like the next great one to come out of NC State. He does a great job going through his reads. He's accurate. I think of one of the plays, it probably should have been pass interference. He threw kind of a 15-yard stop route with a guy right in his face, threw it before the receiver even made his break, and the UVA guy jumped it. I think it was pass interference, but those are big-time throws. And he's just – you can tell he's got control of the offense. I just don't have enough good things to say of him other than he's a dude.
There's I'm going to quarterback nerd out here for a second. A lot of times I compare in this one way quarterbacking to golfing, in that the really good ones by their misses. Like, if you're a bad golfer, your misses could go gosh darn anywhere, right? And I think a lot of us know a lot about that. But when you play with a really good golfer, like, they miss to the fat part of the green, or they miss away from the hazard. Like, they hit a bad shot and they still kind of control it. And I'll tell a story that Mike's my cousin, so my dad loves telling this story. There was a point in time where Mike was throwing, it was a go route, kind of back shoulder down the right sideline. I think this was at State. I think this was pre-NFL. And you hit the defender in the back of the head. You hit him in the back of the helmet. And looked kind of goofy as a play. And then you were talking to my dad after, which is your uncle. And and you told them that your coach said if they don't get their head around, hit him in – this was Dana Bible, one of the legendary offensive minds. If they don't get their head around, hit him in the back of the head because your receiver is going to make a play back on the ball and you're going to get the DPI. And, like, it was almost like you threw it too well. Like, you hit him in the back of the head exactly which you – like, it was almost like a saying that you took wildly literally and it bounced off the back of the head and you got the DPI. And like I'm starting to see little things like that. Not that obvious. That's like the most, stereotypical or like overly obvious way to talk about it. But I'm starting to see some of that from CJ Bailey where it's like, oh, that wasn't a good throw and he missed a little outside where only his wide receiver can get it, rather than 2 feet behind the receiver where a deflection can happen and, high and behind always gets tipped up. Even his misses are starting to come to the point where it's like, you know what, that's a pretty good miss. He's missing to the fat part of the green rather than me who would shank it into the woods, right? Like that kind of deal.
He's just throwing the ball really well. You can tell he's got some guys at receiver too that can make plays for him, but he plays with anticipation. Almost all the time he's going to the right place with the ball, which is huge. And like you said, kind of aim small, miss small. His misses are small, and I think we're going to continue to see him be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, which was surprising that going into the season, it felt like he wasn't being talked about enough. But he's a guy, when he steps out on the field, he's going to give an NC State a chance to win every week, which is kind of the ultimate compliment of quarterback, that if you can step off the bus, the head coach is, this is what John Gruden used to say when he coached for the 49ers. He would say, he was an assistant coach for the 49ers. He'd say, is Joe on the bus? Talking about Joe Montana. He's like, all right, we can go. Like, as long as CJ's on the bus, NC State's got a shot.
That's very similar to Ed Orgeron was just on a podcast, and he said, you know what my job was in 2019? If the bus was scheduled to leave at 2:30, make sure Joe Burrow's there by 2:30. that was my job. That was like the whole thing. What do you make of the receivers? Because week one, Wesley Grimes, Teddy Hoffman kind of rose above the rest, everybody else in a complimentary role. This week, there was no one that rose above the rest, right? There's kind of equal dispersion among 6 or 7 guys. Not a – I don't think they had a 30-yard completion, right? It was kind of spread out, short passes, and just highly efficient.
Yeah, I don't know if NC State's going to have a true alpha at the receiver position this year, what they may have in the past, maybe with KC. But that can be a good thing. How much time did we spend last year that it felt like they were trying to force feed Casey the ball? This year, it's kind of like we got, 4 or 5 dudes that can go out and play and we have complete trust with. We may not roll with like 8, like it seems like sometimes in the past where they're rotating too much. But we got, call it 5 receivers, a good tight end, and Hollywood Smothers, and that's gonna be our group. And again, that's where I feel like it's kind of more morphing into the NFL, where you just got a couple guys where maybe you're not worried as much as developing guys in the future because you don't even know if they're going to be here. But I think we're going to see this. Some weeks it might be Noah Rogers. Some weeks it might be Wesley Grimes. Some weeks it might be Keenan Jackson, Terrell Anderson. Every week is probably going to be a little bit different. But they got enough guys that they can spread the ball evenly and make it so CJ doesn't feel like he's keying in on one guy.
In the run game, they do have a dude.
Yeah.
Hollywood Smothers, you've talked highly of him. I've talked highly of him. He felt like our own little secret for a while where, there's so many other running backs across the country getting so much hype. And I just kept going, I think Smothers should be mentioned. I think he should be mentioned. This felt like the first game where all of that came to fruition.
Well, it was the first time that it felt like, compared to week one, the first time we had blocking.
Mm-hmm.
I will say we talked about it a bunch last week. The offensive line has to play better. There was way too much penetration by ECU. This week, they blocked pretty well, and I imagine Virginia's defensive line's got to be better than ECU's. So that was good to see that they gave him some holes. But, I'm telling you, if this guy gets some holes, he's got dangerous speed to take it to the house at any given time. So I think we're all high on Hollywood Smothers, and it's going to more come down to can the offensive line block for him week in and week out.
In the run game, is CJ Bailey a running quarterback? Is like, should we in the recruiting rankings, should he switch over from pro style to dual threat?
He's a dual threat for sure. I mean, what did he have last week? 6 for 44 and 2 touchdowns. I mean the
30-yarder helps.
Now, I think I could have scored on one of them, but the quarterback draw is clearly going to be an emphasis for this offense. Seems like they're running a lot in the red zone, and CJ's got plenty good wheels. I don't think we're mistaking him for Lamar Jackson, but he's a guy that is definitely a running threat that the opposing team is going to have to talk about. How do we stop? We got to keep eyes on him, and it may alter the way that they play third downs because he can take off and get the first down for sure.
Hollywood Smothers with the quote of the week. Did you see the postgame talk about C.J. Bailey?
No.
This is what a running back should do to your running quarterback, right? You got to humble him a little bit. You score 2 touchdowns. The young guy, Hollywood Smothers said the baby giraffe can run a little bit, which it's like, I said this when I first heard the comment, like, for those of you that watch the nature documentaries, giraffes run way faster than you think. They're just kind of gangly. They've got some limbs on them, but they're moving as fast as anybody out there on the Serengeti.
CJ wants to take the throne of being called a giraffe from NC State quarterbacks. He can take that one away from me.
All right, well, no, let's as from like 6'6 plus to 6'6 plus quarterback. This is an interesting because I set these questions up intentionally, tried to get you. This is what they call in the media, gotcha question. If he's a running quarterback, why are they bringing in Will Wilson on fourth downs to pick up those quite frankly really crucial fourth downs?
I think there's a difference between a guy that can get 10 yards or even more versus a guy to get 1 yard. You want the bruiser for the 1 yard. He's more like a short yardage back, where CJ is obviously a little lean, where I don't think he's going to be running guys over. He can just use his speed to run by guys. So getting Will Wilson involved is a good thing. Kind of reminds me of a few years ago with Jack Chambers, what they did. But they showed a lot of trust. I mean, that was a big balls. When Dave went for it on fourth down, what were they on probably the 30-yard line or
their own 28.
28.
Fourth quarter with a 4-point lead.
That was a big moment to trust a true freshman. Was cool to see.
I want to get to that fourth down discussion because I think it applies to the Wake Forest game and beyond for Dave Doeren. But from a mental standpoint, have you ever been the quarterback that has to run to the sideline and let the running package quarterback go in?
No.
I did in college for like one game. It is a weird feeling. As a quarterback, you're used to when you're in, and even if you're just calling a run play and handing it off, like you're in the mix. I thought C.J. Bailey handled it really well, and it can obviously, to play quarterback, and I think you would vouch for this. There's an ego involved, right? Like when you're 8 years old, you're telling your youth coach, like, if any of me and my buddies should have the ball every play, I think it should be me. There's just an ego inherently involved in choosing to play quarterback. And anytime you're taken off the field, I think it's a strange beast.
It may be. I again never experienced it, but I would imagine getting taken off for a 3rd and 1 is different than you're in the red zone on the 5-yard line and they put in the guy and it kind of takes away a touchdown from you.
As my college or my high school coach used to make fun of me because I said once during the game, a slant's as good as a dive. Like you don't have to pick up the first down with the run. You could pick it up with any play, right? Slant's as good as a dive. But I do think like I said, I think C.J. Bailey handled it well, and that is now something that defensive coordinators have to think about. We touched on it. He brought it up. I want to dive further into it. Big decision by Dave Doeren at their own 28-yard line to go for it on 4th and short, ahead by 4. We'll dive into the sociology, the psychology of that decision coming up next right here on Pack Therapy. Back on Pack Therapy, where I think we have to give some kudos to Dave Doeren, the head coach of State, obviously. Last week, one of the things that I think was palpable in their holding on to win against ECU was kind of a lack of sensing the moment or lack of trying to slam the door. And like I said, own 28-yard line, 4th down, 4th and short. You're ahead by 4, so it's obviously a one-score game. If you don't get that first down, you're gifting UVA points. You may be gifting UVA the lead in the 4th quarter. He, big balls, as you said. He onions, and he keeps the team out there, puts the freshman quarterback out for a running play. They pick up the first down. They don't even get points on the drive, but they shrink the game. They eat clock. Was that a different mindset from Dave Doeren than maybe you were expecting?
I think it was, and you have to wonder if the ECU game, played a role in that don't give the team a chance to get back in it. It reminded me of what Dan Campbell's been doing for the Lions the last couple of years. Is that he goes for it on 4th down all the time, and you saw Ben Johnson kind of carry that over the other week. Then you see Harbaugh against the Ravens not go for it. Now, that was like 4th and 4. But it's like, do you want to give the ball back to Josh Allen or no? Hindsight's 20/20, but I have more confidence that Lamar Jackson is going to pick up 4 yards than I do that our defense is going to stop Josh
Just
Allen.
to defend John Harbaugh, Lamar did say he was cramping at that point. So he said I would have pushed John Harbaugh to go for it on 4th, but I was dealing with some cramps.
Either way, I thought it was good to see that Dave was like, we're gonna control our destiny.
Yep.
I got trust that we can get a yard, and to go out and back it up and do it is it's a good thing for the morale of the team. It shows that the coach trusts in us as players to go out and do our job. So I think that's got to make the offensive line feel good, and that Dave's going to put basically game on the line. Hey, you guys pick up the 1 yard. Now, Virginia did end up getting the ball back anyway, but I think that was a huge play in that game to go for it and get it.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up Dan Campbell, because in the same conversation I brought up Dan Campbell a few times this week already, talking about that decision. I don't think people understand how ridiculous it is, and if actually I'm sure you do when you sit back and think about it, because we all know what the Detroit Lions were. The Detroit Lions are like the swaggiest team in the NFL right now. They were so unswaggy. They had Calvin Johnson and somehow felt uncool for a decade. Now they're this buzzworthy. I feel like they I don't stay up on modern hip hop, but I feel like they're getting referenced in rap songs. like the Lions are awesome, and I think a lot of that started with Dan Campbell said point blank, I believe in my guys, and I'm going for it on darn near every 4th down. He got to the point where the analytics guys were going like, yeesh, like Dan Campbell's he's going for being aggressive here, when normally the analytics guys are just making fun of coaches for not going for it. And with that confidence being fed into them over and over and over again, now it's almost like they're arrogant. Like now they're working on their celebrations. So like it's a different beast. And I'm not saying that Dave Doran's going to go full Dan Campbell and go for it on every 4th down, but some level of that gives your offense a little bit of swagger. Like, hey, our coach believes in us as much as we believe in us, and that builds off each other.
Yeah, I mean, you watch the Lions, it's like they're not even looking to the sideline to see if we're going for it. It's like we
what's the play,
know.
golf? Like, that's it.
But, and to your point, I don't expect this to become, maybe a couple times a week thing, going for it on 4th down. But, again, I'm sure in the meeting room, the offensive line coach is telling them, look, our coach believes in you guys. Like, that's got to make – now we got to back them up on it. And they did. So it'll be interesting kind of going forward what the mentality is. I will say in college football, there's not often times where games are this close, where, NFL, it seems like every week it comes down to a 2-minute drill. But 2 weeks in now, we've had 2 games come down to the final 2 minutes.
One of the themes, and this was just sparked by something Mike said, one of the themes of the first 2 weeks for State, I think, is trust, right? Because last week on this pod, we were talking about how there was I think it was a 4 verts call for C.J. Bailey, and he took a sack on 3rd down, and it pushed him back, and it made the field goal longer, and they missed the field goal. Then later on in the game, they're facing a 3rd down, and they went super conservative with the quarterback draw. And that's a in-game example of, I trusted you. It didn't work out well. Next time, you're going to have a little bit less trust. Then this week, we talked earlier, Mike goes, actually, the offensive line opened up some holes, right? The offensive line was moving some guys, unlike in week 1 when there really wasn't much movement up front for the offense. So now on 4th down, when you needed 1 yard, the coach trusts the offensive line to move the pile. They pick up the 1st down. So it's you earned the trust. The coach gave you the trust. You made good on the trust. And it works in both ways, right? If you make good on the trust, the next time you'll have a little bit more. Right. And a little bit more. And it works in the opposite way as well. You don't pick up that 4th down, you're not getting 4th down go for it's on the own side of your 50 very often anymore.
To your point, it's people give Dave a hard time for not keeping the foot on the pedal. If the offensive line blocked the way they did against ECU, I don't know if he's making that call.
Exactly.
He's feeling them out, and they were, Howard Smothers ended up with over 150 yards rushing. It's like, okay, they're doing their job today. we can trust them. So I think this is a great point to make, that the players kind of have to earn the trust of the coaches as much as the coaches have to have, confidence in their players.
Wake Forest on Thursday. What does a short week do for your prep? And to Dave Doran's credit, he already pointed it out. We don't have a routine, right? Because they went Thursday to open, so it was a short awkward week coming out of training camp, then long prep, which is, throws off your routine as much as a short week. Now, short week, Saturday to Thursday. So it's not like they have a traditional Tuesday practice yet. But what does a short week do to prep?
Real quick turnaround. They probably came in on Sunday, watched the film quickly of Virginia, and then got a jump start on Wake Forest. And then come in on Monday, probably more of a walk-through practice just because guys' bodies are recovering from the game. I would imagine on Tuesday they had what would typically be a Thursday practice where you are kind of just helmets and it's a full speed, but somewhat of a walkthrough at the same time. Wednesday, walk through, take the bus over to Winston-Salem and get ready to play. Sometimes it's fun. You just, you don't spend too much time on it. You just get to work, get ready to play, and, Thursday night on ESPN will be a good one.
I always said that the short weeks, the Thursday nighters, are when in college you feel most like a pro athlete. Like, sorry, mom and dad, and sorry, teachers. Like, you're going to class, but your mind's not on class on a short week, right? You might even tell your teachers, like, hey, listen, I got you next week, right? Like, I've got a little extra time. But this week it's like you're eating, sleeping, breathing football. You're in watching extra film because of the NCAA regulations on when you can mandate mandatory meetings and stuff. You're getting together with your receivers and your offensive line kind of on your own as much as you can because there's just not enough time in a short week for the coaches to get everybody on the same page. It's the most you feel like a pro until, I've never been a pro, so I don't know what it actually feels like. But in my imagination, that's what it feels like to be a pro, where just everything's football for 5 days of lightning quick, get ready for Thursday.
Yeah, and it's amazing how it'll only be 5 days since they played, and it almost feels like forever because it's like we put that game against Virginia to bed like almost immediately, where sometimes it can linger, which can be a good or bad thing. Sometimes after a loss, it's like, hey, we got to get that taste out of our mouth. But after a win, it's like, we got to just move on.
The 24-hour celebration rule becomes like eat dinner with your family, and then we're back.
Yeah, those coaches, if I imagine, they didn't even go home on Saturday night. They're getting ready to game plan to have everything ready to go right away on Sunday.
Wake Forest is an interesting one. New coach, bunch of new players. Jake Dickert is the new head coach for Wake Forest, coming from Washington State, where he coached John Mateer, who's killing it at Oklahoma as a quarterback. Cam Ward, obviously everybody knows what he's doing, number 1 overall pick. Kyle Williams, wide receiver for the Patriots. So he's produced some dudes. Shaw Smith-Wade for Carolina Panthers fans, their 5th-round pick, getting in on defense, secondary guy, played for him at Washington State. He's killing state with kindness. I have a quote here. Talk about C.J. Bailey. Bailey has taken a big step forward. He is playing quarterback now. He has the keys to the car, and he is driving it. He's
was that coming with kindness, or was that a backhanded compliment? He's playing quarterback now?
I think he was saying last year thrown in, young guy, trying to figure it out as he goes. This year, full command of the offense is the way. Like, I watched it in context. I don't want to protect him at all, but it came across as like this dude is slinging it.
Okay.
Not saying like this dude had no idea what he was doing last year. It didn't come across that way, at least not to me. But to build off our previous conversation, Taylor had some explosive runs for UVA, former NC Central running back, transferred to UVA. Damon Claiborne is one of the most explosive players in the ACC and the country. Last year, the fastest guy on GPS timing amongst all players in the fastest ball carrier in GPS timing amongst everyone in the country on a kick return against Miami. Had 10 carries, 193 yards, and 3 touchdowns last week, granted against an FCS opponent. Hurt in week 1, didn't play much. But if you're a defense that's given up some explosive plays to the run game, I mean, there's key to the game right there.
Yeah, I would say, as much as I just talked about, every week ACC teams are going to have a quarterback. I imagine, without knowing a ton about the Wake Forest quarterback, this will be one of the weeks that it might be more about stopping the run than it is the quarterback.
I've been saying Wake Forest might have the fastest backfield in the country. Robbie Ashford, their quarterback, is a guy that started at Oregon. I was at South Carolina, I believe. But coming out of – you'll understand how crazy this is. Coming out of high school, he was like 240-something. And at the back when the I don't know if they still do it, Nike did the opening where they had it was like a combine for high school kids. They laser timed 40s. He was like a 240-pound high schooler. He ran a 4.59 laser timed. Wow. So they might, granted, everything I just got super hyped up about, the passing efficiency might be on the opposite side of that spectrum. So, you know, the RPOs and the read keeps and everything, no slow mesh at Wake Forest anymore. But they've got some speed in the backfield that'll test the defense.
Yeah, so then, you know, seeing that he as a freshman, it looks like at Auburn, he had 710 yards rushing.
Auburn, whatever. He's been all over the place.
Yeah. So either way, to your point, they're going to have to stop the run in the running back position and stop the quarterback. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of zone read. And, you know, on a short week, you got to make sure that, you know, that's pretty basic football, but you got to make sure the defense is reading their cues properly.
We were just talking about this off air, so I'm going to make sure we get the things we talk about off air on air. I don't want another Keian Sloan situation. Should State be prepared to win games 35-31 more often than 24-21? Like should they be trying? You know, is it a 38-35 style season rather than a maybe more traditional State 21-17?
I think the offensive mentality has to be we got to put 30 points on the board at least every week. And that's just going to be the reality that we're going to be playing good offenses, and we're going to have to score points. I think it is becoming more like what the Big 12 used to be, and there might be some more shootouts than we've seen in the past in the ACC, which is fun as a fan. Can be frustrating when your defense is giving up a bunch of yards and touchdowns, but we got the guy at quarterback that can do that. So as long as CJ gets off the bus, we got a shot.
I want to talk about real quickly here, the mentality of that. The story that I tell often, and it's a name-dropping story, so everybody get ready. I was growing up in Hawaii. I'm 3 years older than Marcus Mariota, and we were playing against Marcus Mariota's high school, and a kid my age, so we're 3 years older, we didn't know who Mariota was, had never heard of him. It's not like, you know, now where you know the top-ranked sixth graders in the country. Basically, Mariota ran all over us on the first drive, and one of our best safeties who played in college came over to me and said, I don't know who that kid is, but y'all better score. And I was like, all right. See, pretty rare to hear that from a defense. I'd like to think you're going to make some adjustments or something. That was the first drive, but I guess, you know, it was that obvious even then. Went on to win a Heisman. But, you know, I can speak from, we always had good defenses in college. And, you know, if there were ever any, you know, like side eyes, it was coming towards us, which, you know, you can get used to. When you're in those shootouts, or when you know going into a game we might have to score 35, how does that dynamic work in the locker room? Not to knock my own offenses, but we wouldn't know.
I've been on both sides of it. When I was with the Giants, we were catching a lot of eyes from the defense. We had a good defense, and the offense was definitely holding us back, holding the team back. But I've been on the side where you're the offense, and you know, I don't think it's like you're looking down upon the defense. It kind of becomes fun and just your own challenge. It's almost like it's our offense versus their offense, and they can't stop us. So we just got to, you know, play our game, and really it's don't beat ourselves at this point. Like there was nothing in that Virginia game where CJ Bailey or the offense potentially hurt ourselves. It was just super clean, no turnovers. I don't even remember really a time where it felt like they put the ball in jeopardy. So it becomes fun. It becomes a track meet. I remember it kind of happened to me when we went down to Miami my senior year. Became an absolute shootout, and ultimately went to overtime and lost it. And I did lose us the game. I felt like probably like Derrick Henry felt the other night. I threw for like 400 yards, but threw a pick on the last drive before overtime, and I felt like I lost us the game. So I think the dynamic, as long as it doesn't get too out of hand, you just understand, hey, we're going to have to put up a lot of points week in and week out.
That is a very Derrick Henry game, because it's like, well, actually, you're a big part of the reason we were in it. But you know what? The one mistake might eat at you a little bit. That's Pack Therapy. That's Mike Glennon. At Wake Forest on a Thursday, there's some history there. Not, you know, if State struggles, it's not because anyone was overlooked. They know what it's like to go up to Winston-Salem on a midweek game and get a good shot from the Demon Deacons, and we'll break it down. We'll be back next time on Pack Therapy with the results and to dive further into ACC play. See ya.